Donald Trump takes the stand. Judge Engoran didn't like a comment that he made over to the Associated Press when he stepped out during the trial in the middle of a break. He made this offhanded comment and they published it, and Judge Engoran was furious. He said, "How dare you violate my gag order?" He threw the media out of the hearing room and he put Donald Trump on the stand, and he actually asked him questions and then tried to adjudicate his credibility. And all this took place right in the middle of the trial. We know that Michael Cohen is up for cross-examination. He was being questioned by the very brilliant legal scholar and attorney Alina, who was doing a great job getting convicted perjurer to admit that he is a convicted perjurer, and she is back doing it again, and she just obliterates him today, as we're going to see. So it's a great performance from her and the rest of the defense team. But the judge did in fact call Trump up in front of everybody and put him on the stand. Now we're going to go through this in detail, so I want to just preview that and then we'll go through the day's activities. And for today, we're going to start off the court session here talking from Dan Alexander, who was there in the courtroom. And Dan Alexander is the senior editor over at Forbes, and he's done a great job of reporting what's happening there inside the courtroom. So he's going to give us a play-by-play, and we're going to see right where this little explosion happens in the courtroom. And later on in the day, by the way, Trump stormed out of the courtroom after the judge issued a ruling. And so this whole thing was just an explosive day. Would be very nice if they actually had cameras in the courtroom. They say they want cameras in the courtroom so that they can expose all of Trump's criminality, but there are not cameras in the courtroom, in my opinion, because it would expose their corruption. Now, Dan says he's there in court. Trump's obviously facing the charges he's facing, and the day starts immediately. All rise. Oh, the judge is coming in. Put your phone down. All right, please be seated. Trump strolls in afterwards wearing a blue suit and a blue tie, a similar outfit to one he has worn on other days in the trial. He's looking good. Now, his son's there with him, Eric Trump. He says he's here too, sitting in the front row over his father's left shoulder. So Trump is right back here, Eric Trump. Now, in come the photographer, says Dan, and they're walking like they've got somewhere to go. He says they're just flying on through there. They're not strolling around in this crowd. They line up in the front of the former president, aim their lenses. It's click, 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 before they head back to the door, stopping for shots of the attorney general as well. They're like, oh, Tish is here. Just kind of a drive-by camera footage. So then one of the officers, okay, trial's about to get underway. Now, one of the officers of the court opens the door, says, "Witness entering." Everybody moves out of the way. Michael Cohen. He passes through the doors. He's like, "I'm back." Now, yesterday, he was very cowardly and didn't look anybody in the eyes, especially Trump. And, if you're going to go stab somebody in the back and make up a bunch of lies about him, the least you could do is look him in the eye when you do it. So he is wearing a dark jacket and a white shirt, sans tie. Now, he's real hip today, as we're going to see. He doesn't need a tie, okay? He's too cool for that. So he looks towards Trump, probably to make eye contact, though. Pathetic. Then at the judge and says, "Oh, hello, Michael Cohen. Welcome back." Judge Engoran says, "Perfect. Let's continue with the cross-examination of Michael Cohen." Now, Alina, our favorite, is back doing the cross-examination, and here she goes and picks up where she left off. And here's what she says. "Welcome back, Mr. Cohen." She says here, "Yesterday, just wanted to follow up on your testimony. Everything was truthful, yeah? Was yesterday the first time that you admitted to lying during a particular guilty plea in open court? This is the first time you've ever actually acknowledged that on the record," which, like, that question stings. Okay, that's like, oh gosh. Is this the first time you've ever actually had to admit it? Wow. That you're a liar? In open court? Boom. Cohen says yes. Right? First time I have to admit that I'm a liar. Cohen confirms I'm a liar. He says now, as a witness, he's got obvious credibility issues, and so Alina is just backhanding all day, right? This is what happens when you put a perjurer on the stand, which is why you don't do that. So here Dan says, he's reporting, he says, now Trump's legal team is playing a specific video of Michael Cohen. And in that video, Michael Cohen is lying about Donald Trump's net worth on CNN during the 2016 presidential campaign. He says, Cohen's on the screen, Donald Trump's an amazing businessman. He's worth many billions of dollars, probably 10 billion. He's on CNN, right? He's on Team Trump right until then, until they flipped him because they started prosecuting him. And then he decided he was going to make a Twitter account dedicated to bashing Trump and so on. So Trump's lawyer is now pointing out, this is Alina, says, now, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that a lot of this testimony, the things that you said, like you went on CNN, isn't this true? You went on CNN and you said that Trump's net worth was more than 10 billion. And then after that statement, isn't that kind of what opened up the investigation? And so Alina's calling him out on that, right? You see what's happening. She's saying, so in other words, you'd agree with me that it's fair to say, wouldn't you, Mr. Cohen, that you in fact helped kickstart the investigation that led to this lawsuit. Isn't that true? Michael Cohen, without his tie, he looks over from the stand to Attorney General Letitia Tish James. As we've seen her, she sits in the back of the courtroom behind the bar, and I don't really know why she does that. I mean, we would even bring interns. When I was an intern, the lawyer that I was interning with would even bring me in front of the bar. And when I was practicing, I would bring my interns with us in front of the bar. I don't know why Tish is sitting back there. There's more room up there, I'm sure. She's the Attorney General, for crying out loud. She should be sitting there doing some of this. This is her big case. She's run a whole campaign about prosecuting Trump. So I don't know why she's not doing any actual work, but she's sitting there observing, like I guess maybe a law school student. I usually, when I was just a student, I would just sit in the back. So, hey, what's going on in here? Just like Tish. So anyways, Michael Cohen, he's up on the stand. He looks Letitia dead eye, looks her in the eye, but not Trump. She's sitting in the front row, presumably behind the bar again. And he says to her, hey, Tish, you're welcome. Yells that in court. So you'd say it's fair to say that you helped Michael, you helped kickstart the investigation that actually led to this case, right? You're welcome, Tish. He looks right at her and says it. A convicted perjurer who lied, who then goes on CNN, makes an incriminating statement, then turns around and he's now a witness against the person that he made the statement about. Like, he said the thing. So you started it. Letitia's sitting right there. She's like, don't look at me. So Alina says, so Mr. Cohen, you said you played a key role in inflating Trump's asset, right? You admitted that, yeah. And how come you're not a defendant in Letitia's case? I mean, if you were on CNN and you played a key role and you were out there running your mouth about 10 billion here, 10 billion there, isn't it true that you're not a defendant? Now, Alina then asks him, is the reason why you have not been charged because even Tish doesn't believe you? She doesn't know what you're saying is true. Nobody believes anything you're saying, so she's not going to charge you. Alina keeps going. And Cohen responds. He says, well, I don't know if she believes me. You could ask Miss James. Nodding to the attorney. Laughters are bubbling up in the courtroom. I don't know. Tish says, objection, back there from behind the bar. It's so pathetic. Objection, she says. More laughter in the courtroom. Oh my gosh. It's like a high school dog pile. It's insane. Like it's a dog pile. It's crazy. They're like kids. The judge is just smirking. They're all laughing. Alina's examining Cohen. Why haven't you been charged? I don't know. Ask Tish. I would like to ask Tish. Can we call her to the stand? Sure. Let's do it. Tish, you want to come up here? Is what Alina should have said. I don't know if she was in there. I don't know what she said. Yeah, bring her up. Come on up here, Tish. I got a lot of questions for you. But they're laughing about it, right? Because this whole thing's just a big stupid joke to them. I know the answer is because Cohen is a useful witness against their political opponent named Donald Trump. Obviously, that's the answer. Tish, if she prosecuted you and you were involved in any of this stuff, then you probably wouldn't be their witness, right? And she's objection. I object to your question. Well, then get up on the stand or get up in front of the bar, Tish, if you're going to be objecting. But they're joking, right? This whole thing's just an illegitimate facade. So then Trump's attorney asks whether Cohen expected to get a position in the White House after Trump was elected president. So Alina says, hey, so Cohen, isn't it true that after Trump won, you wanted to go work in the White House? He says, incorrect. Alina says, incorrect. All right, well, I want to show you these text messages. All right, here is one of them. Do you recall this? He's like, oh, don't. Well, read it. And they show him. Isn't it true that this says that you thought that you could be chief of staff, Michael? Isn't that what that says? I guess you couldn't, he says, I don't know, interpret it that way. Alina says, okay, thanks. Judge says, okay, this is pretty damning. So we'll take a break. The judge now is furious, right? Now, we take a break. Now, something happens, okay? So let's pause. Let's take a break in this. And so Trump did come out and he did give a statement. And this statement, we'll listen to it, but I don't think it contains the actual problematic portion that the judge is upset about. In fact, it doesn't, I'm pretty sure. But what happened was, after that break was called, you can see here, this is what Frank Runyon was reporting. He said, the press was removed from the courtroom. Trump and his attorneys are still inside. It was a chambers conference. And this is because Judge Engoran saw an AP report, and the AP report said that he suggested that Trump violated the order about commenting on the court clerk. But the original story was about this. Here it is. Apparently, Trump testified, he said something about, quote, a person who's very partisan sitting alongside the judge, right? The AP reported this. And Trump admits that he said something along this line, but that's it. So he made a comment, the judge is partisan and someone sitting next to him. Okay, so it's about the clerk. Now, Trump is going to say the comment was about Cohen, but the statement was made, and here is basically what Trump sounded like. Now, the statement is not in this statement, but I wanted to share this so we get a feel for what's happening. Trump comes out, makes a statement, judge hears about it, he's furious in the aftermath.
It looks like that's going to happen, so that'll be a wonderful thing. I put out a proof today on him, and they did one last night, you saw that. We could get somebody that's going to be really spectacular, and maybe for many years to come, he'll be very good. So we're very happy about that. On the trial here, it's going very well. This is a Biden witch hunt deal. It all comes out of the DOJ. It's to interfere with the election. Our company has turned out to be much stronger than anyone even thought. The financial statements are much lower than the actual numbers. The actual numbers are much higher. We're in the process of proving that. We already have proved it. They had Mar-a-Lago valued at $18 million, the Attorney General, with the judge. We're working in coordination with the judge, and it's worth approximately 50 to 100 times that amount. This is a witch hunt. It's just a bad trial. Very unfair trial. The only time the statute's ever been used for this is this. This is a statute that doesn't give you a jury, doesn't give you anything. It's a pure political witch hunt, but we have the facts on our side. So the company is much stronger than they anticipated, much stronger than anyone really understood. It was a private company, so nobody understood it. The assets have very little debt. We have a lot of cash. It's a great company, and we're happy with the way it's going. But it's a witch hunt. There's no question about it. Getting back to Congress, we think Mike Johnson's going to do really well. He's popular, he's smart, he's sharp, he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a fantastic speaker. I believe that will happen. We'll see what. You'll let me know when I come out. I'll be out in a couple of hours.
He makes a comment later.
Would you I don't believe it, because I've spoken to Mark Meadows many, many times over the years, and he strongly believed the election was rigged. Now, of course, you know, deranged Jack Smith and the prosecutors, they go after somebody for years, and they say, look, here's the story. We'll give you nothing. We'll erect a statue to you, or you're going to go to jail for 10 years for having done nothing wrong. So, you know, a lot of people have to make that decision. Some people would never make that decision. Other people would. But Mark Meadows always felt it was rigged. The whole thing was rigged. It was rigged and it was stolen. And because it was rigged and stolen, our country's gone to hell. You take a look at the border, you take a look at Israel, that would have never happened. You take a look at Ukraine, that would have never happened. Our country's going to hell. You just look at energy independent we were, and now we're not energy independent. We're not even close. We're buying energy from Venezuela and lots of other places, and we have more liquid gold under our feet. We're a crime-ridden nation. We're a nation in decline, all because of a rigged and stolen election. Thank you very much.
What about Giuliani? Do you think he'll take a deal?
All right, so that is what it looked like, and Trump was outside there. You saw a funny comment. Apparently, we got sisters here who are these two security officers, wore the same outfit today. So we've got Donald Trump is there. Okay, now the substance of his statement, some comments about the case, some comments about the speakership. Things are, kind of low and kind of quiet, nothing too explosive there. But apparently, he said something else, and look at the scenery around this courtroom. There's corridors and halls, and so he might have said something to an AP person, and the AP person just wrote it down. What do you think about this? What do you think about that, right? So Trump makes a statement, and then things went a little bit awry. And so let's go back to the trial transcript, the thread courtesy of Dan Alexander. We're back after a brief break, right? Trump walks out, comes back in. The judge lambasts a statement that Trump reportedly made outside of the room when he suggested that a person alongside the judge is partisan, meaning the judge's clerk. This is after the judge already put out a gag order. He wasn't allowed to say that. So brings him back in, and the judge is furious. He says, quote, "Why should there not be severe sanctions for this blatant, dangerous disobeyal of a clear court order?" says the judge. Blatant, dangerous disobeyal. This judge is in charge of everything now. Trump has no free speech. It's whatever he says. The judge asks. Trump's lawyer stands up. He says, "Your Honor, my client was not referring to your clerk or anybody on your staff, okay? He was referring to Cohen, who was sitting right next to you. That's who he was calling the person who was dishonest, not the judge's clerk." The judge says, "Not really sure I buy that. So I'm going to take the matter under advisement." Now, you might think that's over, but we're not. The judge is just fuming right now. Okay, now he's probably going to go talk to somebody, maybe his clerk, I don't know, whoever's giving him instructions on this, will tell him what to do. I don't know what to do now. Oh, I didn't think of the answer. It could have been talking about Cohen. So then he says, well, what do I do? He's going to think it over. He says, I'm going to take it under advisement. I'm just going to hold it off on the side. Miss Abba, please continue. Says, Trump's lawyers are now asking Cohen about money. They say, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that your whole life is basically dedicated to screaming about Donald Trump? No. Don't you make money off him, though? Maybe. Isn't it true that you have a book that you published that talks about Trump? Yeah. Isn't it true that you have a podcast where you just scream about Trump all day like a child? Isn't it true that you sell merchandise about Trump? Pathetic. Maybe. Oh, okay. So you do have some things. So you do make some money. So now, how about you tell me about this? How much money do you make from your podcast? Does anybody listen listen to that, Michael? How many people bought your books that wasn't money laundering from Tish? How many people buy your stupid shirts? Anyone? Cohen says, I don't want to talk about the numbers. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. People listen. Okay, people buy. Well, but how much, Michael? Can you give me a specific number? Does anybody download your show? He says it's irrelevant. Well, yeah, I mean, you can only sell TDS for so much, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of people who are still addicted to that crap, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty good. You know, his numbers are good, but he doesn't want to talk about it. It's irrelevant. All right. He says, Trump's lawyer, Alina, says, in other words, it sounds like you have like new stories you have to make up every year, okay? Trump hasn't been in office for quite some time. So you just make up new stories. And that's why they bring you on MSNBC on their favorite show, Inside Jen Psaki, where they're constantly having you lecture everybody about what Trump. So, Mr. Cohen, isn't it true that the more outrageous your stories are about the president, Mr. Trump, the more money you make? You'd say that's accurate, wouldn't you, Mr. Cohen? No. But isn't it true that you have a financial incentive to criticize Donald Trump? You would agree with that, wouldn't you? Cohen says, yes, I do. Of course he does. He didn't lie about that one. So Trump's team continues to slam his credibility. They pull up an article from CNN. They say, CNN article from 2015. They say, hey, Mr. Cohen, do you remember when you said this? Remember when you said this back in 2015 in November? They said that you said that you've never known Trump to say something inaccurate. Wow. A top counsel for Trump on Monday defended the presidential frontrunner in an exchange with Jake Tapper following his boss's refusal to back down on claims about 9/11. Michael Cohen sparred with Jake Tapper on the lead. Cohen did not back down with a 9/11 claim. He said to Jake Tapper on air, Cohen, quote, I'm not so sure that that's true. And I've worked for Mr. Trump now for a long time, Cohen said. And I can tell you that Mr. Trump's memory is fantastic. And I've never come to a situation where Mr. Trump has said something that is not accurate. Cohen brought up posts on social media of other people and he defends Trump. So it's true, isn't it, Michael, that you said Trump has never said anything that is not accurate? And I agree with him, by the way, on this thing. I don't think Trump gets credit for this. I think his memory is quite good. You know, he is tap dancing around this Chutkin gag order, or he was, and he just came out and he knows like when he can say deranged thug and not. I mean, he's like on point. You know, he's dealing with a lot of complex issues simultaneously, and he's still juggling all the gag orders every day in front of the press, fielding questions, and he's just tap dancing around them. It's actually impressive, right? It's not an easy thing to do. And so we'll notice that. Now, it's insane that he has to do that. He should be able to say whatever the hell he wants. But within the confines of the law, legally, there are already laws that make it illegal to threaten people and so on. But here, Cohen, the convicted perjurer, was also defending Trump. So we go back to the threat. Mr. Cohen, isn't it true you said that? He says, well, I said that, but my words weren't true then. So you lied about those words? Well, I would just say that they weren't true. Okay, so you lied. Next question. Now, Alina is getting closer to the conclusion of her cross-examination. And she says, I want to pull up another example here from 2019. Do you remember when you gave testimony to Congress? Yeah. And this question came up. You gave testimony, and here's the question. Mr. Cohen, did Mr. Trump direct you or Mr. Weisselberg to inflate the numbers for his personal statement? Cohen says, I'm sorry, in Congress. Did he ask me to inflate the numbers? Not that I recall, no. So you say, wow, so Trump didn't ask you to inflate the numbers because you just said he did yesterday. So are you lying now or were you lying then? Were you lying yesterday when you said Trump told you to inflate the numbers, or were you lying in Congress when you told them that he did not tell you to inflate the numbers? Cohen responds, he says, well, I was lying under oath in that testimony in front of Congress. Alina Abba ends it appropriately, doesn't ask an additional question, and drops it. Boom. No further questions, Your Honor. This dude's a liar. He says, I was lying under oath in that testimony before Congress. Oh, so you just come on the stand and just lie. So we can't take you credibly at all. Dan says, Trump's lawyers got Cohen to admit in open court that he lied under oath in other settings on multiple occasions. The dude is a bona fide liar. So they go get hot dogs at lunch. Man, those look good. And we're back in lunch. Now, this is where things get a little bit squirrely. All right. Now, we think that the judge has taken this AP comment that Trump made under advisement, and we're going to hear something about it later. But boom, we're back from lunch. Dan hits it right on the head, says, oh boy, the judge starts an impromptu hearing and he calls Donald Trump to the witness stand to ask him about the comments that he made earlier in the morning about referencing someone next to the judge. Whoa. Donald Trump takes the stand, my friends, okay, in a civil case, but the former president, we were expecting maybe to hear from him in a criminal January 6th case, or the classified documents case down in Florida, or Big Fanny's RICO case. He takes the stand, not in his own defense or anything, but because the judge has ordered him to that, okay? So he walks up there, sits down in the bench. The judge says, I've got questions for you. Now, we've been following this bouncing ball, okay? It goes from something minor, a simple warning, to 5,000 to 10,000, as we'll get to, and so on. But now Trump is sworn in under oath. Mr. President, raise your right hand. Trump raises his hand. Do you promise to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, God? I do. Mr. President, Mr. Trump, I'm sure he calls him Mr. Trump. Please be seated. He says, Mr. Trump, the court has become aware of comments you made that are in direct violation of my gag order, blah, blah, blah. How do you answer to the allegation that you have violated my order and disobeyed me? He says, well, I didn't disobey you. I was talking to the press and I was criticizing Michael Cohen, who was sitting right next to you. I wasn't talking about your clerk. And the judge says, Mr. Trump, are you sure you didn't mean my law clerk? The judge asks. Apparently the same clerk has been whispering in his ear or whatever. Trump says, yes, I'm sure. Have you referred to her as partisan? Trump, judge questioning him. He says, yeah, well, I think she's very biased against us. I think we made that clear. He says, thank you, Mr. Trump. Questioning's over. Trump steps down from the stand. Judge doesn't seem to be buying it. Judge Engoran says, well, Mr. Trump, I hereby fine you $10,000, which is on the liberal side, to be paid within 30 days to the lawyer's fund for client protection. He says, you know, now that I think about it, he's mulling it over. Hold on a minute, he says. You know what? I've reconsidered. I'm reconsidering this. I don't know if he's thinking 10, 20,000, 50,000. What does he say? Liberal side? Like that is what? Aggressive? Or that is not aggressive? What does this mean? Which is on the liberal side. Insane? On the insane side? On the liberal side, I think it'd be like $10 trillion for Ukraine or something. I don't know. But, you know, it's, which is on the liberal side. I don't even know what that means. But to be paid within 30 days, this, he's mulling it over. I've reconsidered and the ruling stands. He says, and don't do it again or it will be worse, Trump. Now this hearing is over. Don't do it again or it will be worse. Maybe 20,000, maybe 50,000, maybe contempt of court. And every time it's going to escalate, okay? And Judge Chutkan is going to look at this and she's going to, you know, well, her case is being appealed right now, but she did look over to New York City to be informed on it. And we'll see, right? It's getting not good. Judge sends him back after examining the former president for making a statement about a court clerk. Now, you might say it's inadvisable to make a statement about a court clerk. I would tell my defendant, it's probably not a good idea, but let me explain that because my defendant, when I was representing people, was not usually or ever the subject of an orchestrated political prosecution by their political opponents in America. Never happened. And when that is something that happens, when the institution is that prosecuting you and denying you your due process and your liberty, when that very institution is corrupt, the literal only mechanism that you have to combat that is free speech. You have to be able to contest it. And you go out and speak freely, and you rally support to your cause, and you win in the marketplace of ideas, and you get more votes, and you change the course of the country. That's just how it works. That's why free speech is number one. It's the First Amendment. Now, the judge is going to come around and try to justify this. And what is his justification about this clerk? And maybe she is whispering in his ear this whole time. I don't know. They don't have cameras in the courtroom. But I would love to know that. I'd love to see it. Why is this judge getting whispered into his ear all the time? Shouldn't we have the right to know? Shouldn't Trump be allowed to talk about that? You can't criticize the Justice Department or the DOJ or criticize the judge, but not the operation of the court. So the judge can just outsource all of the corruption to somebody else and then say, I'm protecting my staff. You can criticize me all you want, but all these other people who are involved in your unjust prosecution, they're immune and immunized from recourse? No, that's insane. Okay, it's free speech. So the judge anyways ends the hearing and takes another $10,000 away from Trump without any legitimacy, in my opinion. And so here now, Michael Cohen comes back into the courtroom and says, he walks up to the witness stand. Now, Alina, she's taking a break. She just obliterated him. She doesn't want to embarrass him anymore. I'll let somebody else take it from here. So a new attorney from Trump jumps up. His name's Clifford Robert. Shout out. Now he's questioning Michael Cohen and he's returning to another familiar topic. So he says, Mr. Cohen, we've got all these other records. Isn't it true that you actually lied in front of Congress? Isn't that true? And Cohen says, actually, no. He says, actually, no. Now my testimony before Congress was actually true. When he was asked, did Trump direct you or Mr. Weisselberg to inflate the numbers? And he replied, I'm sorry. Did he ask me to? Not that I recall, no. He says, actually, that was true. So I didn't lie back then. Oh my gosh. Now look at this. Trump's team cannot hold back its smiles. They're like, what the heck? What did he just say? Okay, so just to be clear about this. So Michael Cohen, during Alina's cross-examination, he admitted that he lied to Congress, okay? Because he was in Congress saying that Trump did not tell him to inflate the numbers. In other words, he told Congress Trump is innocent. But now he's here saying Trump is guilty. And so they said, okay, so that makes you a liar. Okay, so you literally lied to Congress. And I don't know if he's been prosecuted for those charges or not, or if that's a separate instance, right? That might be a separate instance. He's already been prosecuted and convicted on this. So that might have been a separate instance. So Cohen might have changed his answer so that he doesn't get prosecuted again for a second lying offense. Okay, so then Cohen changes his answer and he comes back and says, actually, I didn't lie in front of Congress. And when I said that Trump is innocent in Congress, that was the truth. Dan says, this is wild, man. And it is wild. I would like a full transcript here. It's like, what? So Trump and his team cannot hold back their smiles. They're absolutely thrilled about this. One of Trump's lawyers jumps up. He says, Your Honor, this is clear. Okay. The person, they make a motion for a directed verdict, which would mean the judge would just issue a ruling now, stop the case, heard enough, probably jumped up, made the argument, Your Honor, this is Michael Cohen. Okay. He makes up the crux of this case by his own testimony. He even admitted that he was the person who helped launch this whole thing. He started this by going on CNN, as he admitted, and inflating Trump's values on his own. And then he's lied multiple times working with Tish James to create this whole fiction in here. And he's had multiple times on the record where he said Donald Trump didn't tell him to inflate the records. In fact, he just confirmed for us when he was in front of Congress, that was the truth. And so that means that he's lying here today. He just told you that Congress was true, which means he is lying to you today. Therefore, this is such a catastrophe to their case. This is their key witness for them. And so, Your Honor, this is a travesty of justice. We would move for a directed verdict, and please decide this case and end it and conclude it right now, please. Thank you. Nothing further. So they sit down. The judge responds, okay, Judge Engoran, this little guy, he says, look at this. He says, denied. He says it like that, right? He articulated both of the syllables. Denied. Looks over to his lawyers. His people. It's a communist show trial is really like what it is. It's very analogous to that. So Donald Trump is furious. Okay, he stands up. He causes all the officers to go on high alert. The former president then walks out of the courtroom, okay? He says, denied. And Trump's just like, and gets out. Ah! And everybody freaks, man. I feel that. And so everyone's on high alert. A group of security personnel, they join Donald Trump. They exit the courtroom. Eric Trump joins his father on his way out of the room. Everyone freezes. Secret Service is like, what the heck is going on? Then they get back on track. So then Trump storms out. Then the Attorney General comes back up for redirect exam, right? They get an opportunity to fix all this. Cohen tries to clear up the confusion. They're like, what did you say? What did you mean? He says, well, Trump did not specifically state, like Michael, go inflate the numbers. He says, Trump speaks like a mob boss. And what he does is he tells you what he wants without specifically telling you. Oh, man. Trump's team says, Your Honor, look, you just heard from him, okay? They just fixed his statement on redirect, and this case has to be ended. The judge says, absolutely denied. He says, I do not see this trial hanging solely on Cohen's testimony. There's enough evidence in this case to fill this courtroom, says the judge, which is just crazy because the judge hasn't heard all the evidence yet. So the judge has already made a predetermination, okay? The judge is already come to his judgment. Now, that's it. There's enough evidence in this case to fill the courtroom. Cohen is done. Open court proceedings are over. Dan says, of the days I've been in this courthouse, none have been as wild as this one. Thanks for following along. And so, my friends, make sure you're following Dan Alexander and tell him thank you from us for doing a great job reporting. I really liked his reporting. It's very kind of fair. I think it's very factual, and we're grateful that he is sharing these threads. And it sounds like they got some good hot dogs over there. So make sure you're checking them out. He's over at Dan Alexander 21 on the X platform, and apparently he'll be there tomorrow and throughout the rest of the trial. And so thank you to Dan for posting all that stuff out for us. So, my friends, that is the big day in New York City in Tishy James's courtroom where she's sitting behind the bar. Trump fined another $10,000. We'll see where this case goes, my friends. We'll continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us as we cover this case and all of the other Trump cases. And we'll look forward to seeing you over in the next segment.